Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So they're back with the patch notes review for patch 3.1b. Now, as you guys know, we've been releasing daily content for the past 2 weeks or so with a small break in between. And there is still more daily content coming up in the next couple of days. We got quite a bit of updated complete guides and commentary guides coming up, and obviously those have been recorded in patch 3.1a, but don't worry, they are all still relevant, and this is not actually going to change any of those builds whatsoever. So anyways, let's get straight into patch 3.1b. There are quite a number of changes, actually not really that many, but I think that this patch is going to be very impactful to the meta because a lot of meta champions are getting affected. So first up, before we get into champion changes, Elemental Rift is back, and there is a pretty huge change which I sort of agree with, but at the same time there are of course pros and cons. So the change is, after the first dragon is slain, the terrain will change, and after you slay 2 dragons, you get the soul already. So previously, in League PC, you need 4 dragons for soul and 2 dragons for terrain change. In Wild Rift, they changed it such that you get 2 dragons for terrain change and 3 dragons for soul. However, because you need 3 dragons for soul, plenty of games the Elder Dragon just never spawns. Whereas currently in Wild Rift, Elder Dragon spawns in majority of games when you reach about 20 minutes or plus or so. So with the Elder Dragon, with the previous case of 3 dragons per soul, if let's say it takes 5 dragons for a team to get a soul, assuming 2 dragons per team and then a fight for soul on the 5th dragon, pretty much with the dragon spawning at 5 minutes, minimally that will be 25 minutes for the soul to be gotten, and like about 30 minutes almost for the Elder Dragon to spawn, which basically means it never comes out. It only sort of comes out when a team just takes 3 dragons in a row, but even when you get to that, basically that team is snowballing so hard they're normally winning the game before the Elder Dragon even spawns, or they don't even need it to win the game. Essentially what I'm saying is that I've actually never gotten the Elder Dragon with the previous Elemental Rift despite playing it quite a bit. So with this change, Elder Dragon is a lot more likely to spawn. But the real problem, in my opinion, here is that you only need 2 dragons per soul. So basically, it means dragons are always going to be hotly contested. Now, because you won't know what the second dragon is when the first dragon spawns, there are only 3 possible dragons. So if, let's say, whatever the first dragon is, that will not be the soul. So if Infernal Dragon is the first dragon, you know that the soul is going to be mountain or ocean. So maybe if you think that if you think that that's worth sacrificing, maybe yes. But I feel like this would mean that first dragon and definitely second dragon will be contested. Like, second dragon is almost guaranteed to be contested because it is going to be soul for one of the teams if it is uncontested. So I kind of feel this forces you to contest dragons, which I don't really think is kind of very good, because now the fact that dragon and rift herald spawns at the same time means you can go for one or the other, but this kind of forces you to contest dragons, which I don't really like. And 2 dragons is really little for soul, but then it does solve the Elder Dragon problem of the Elder Dragon spawning, let's say, around 14 minutes or so into the game, which basically means it will always be there. There's also the other factor of how strong a soul is. Like in PC, it's kind of like Infernal Soul, for example, is a game-ending objective. Like, you do so much explosive damage that the enemy team can't really handle it. Sort of how Elder Dragon is a game-ending objective in the current iteration of Wild Rift. Now, if the souls are toned down a bit, maybe they're not even worth contesting. Maybe just getting 2 heralds and giving soul to the enemy team might even be more worth it. We'll have to see. But basically what I'm saying is that as of now, Elemental Rift is quite a debate, and it will be available to play on 29th of April to 5th of May, so for about a week. Alright, we talked quite a bit about it. Now we can talk about the other stuff. So 2 new skins coming up, Marauder, Brand, and Graves. I believe that these are Wild Rift exclusive skins. They don't exist in PC. Accessories, emotes for both the new Marauder skins, as well as a Captain of the Fluffed, which is going to be the reward for the next Join the Fluffed event, which will be based around Bilgewater. Now, we know from experience that these are normally like 3-day to 4-day events where you basically get, like, I think 8 mega missions which you can all complete simultaneously, and it gives you a small reward, generally an icon, which is going to be this in this upcoming event. Alright, so now we can finally move on to the champion changes. So, first up we have Blitzcrank, which didn't actually really get a change, but basically in the previous patch when they gave him his mini rework on the W, they wanted to reduce his armor. However, it unintentionally was not affected into the game itself. So basically, they are seeing that Blitzcrank is fine as he is, so they're not gonna further nerf him. So basically, this is just highlighting his current armor stats, and which is not gonna get adjusted at all. So next we have Darius, which I feel got quite a huge nerf. So his attack speed per level is going down from 2.2% to 1.2%, and that means that his max attack speed when you reach level 15, not max attack speed, but his base attack speed when you reach level 15 is going down from 41% to 27%. Now that is a chunky 14% decrease in attack speed. Now, the logic for this is to make Darius stack slower. Now, we all know that he gets a stack from his Q, which will always be there. He gets a stack from his like auto W auto, so that will kind of always be there when you reset your auto attack. But aside from that, reaching your 5 stacks is going to be a little bit harder. Of course, taking into account you get more or less 3 stacks if you do your Q and W auto reset correctly. You still need like 2 more stacks, which is going to be a lot harder to get. And since Darius doesn't generally build any attack speed items, he doesn't go for like a Bork or anything like that. He goes for like Black Cleaver into Deadman's, like Proto Belt, something like a Dev's Dance, Starix, Gauge, and a GA. He doesn't really go for any attack speed items. This is going to impact his stacking as they intended to. So it will be a little bit harder to stack on Darius, but overall my personal feeling is that it's not going to affect him too much, because like 1v1, regardless of his attack speed, you're always wary when a Darius is trying to stack onto you. In messy teamfights, is going to be just that, a messy teamfight. So I think the reduction in attack speed will affect him, but I still think his power level is going to remain generally the same, weakened by a little bit of course, but generally the same. Now we have what I feel is probably the most interesting buff slash nerf. It's kind of an adjustment to Fiora. So first up, we're gonna talk about the nerf first. So her lunge dash range is going down by 0.5, and her search range is going down by 0.5 as well. So overall, in terms of hitting the lunge, it's going down by 1 total. So the dash range is the distance that she moves when she casts the lunge, and the search range is the like circle indicator. If you guys used Fiora before, it's a circle indicator of when you end your dash. If they're inside the circle, she will do that poke thing with her sword. So basically your dash range is going down by half, and that circle is going down by half as well. So overall, in terms of doing damage with the lunge, it's going down by 1 distance total. Now this is sort of what a lot of people, including myself, wanted, because a lot of people, including myself, felt that Fiora's range on hitting her Q is a little bit too high, and it makes her very oppressive in lane. Now the compensation for this is on her passive, the vital base damage is going up from 2.5 to 3%, and the AD ratio is going up from 4.5 per 100 bonus AD to 5.5 per 100 bonus AD. So this is basically going up by 1%. And you won't be building like 200 AD, so basically you get about 1% more. This part is is relatively negligible, but the vital base damage going up by 0.5 is pretty good of a damage buff. So in my opinion, this is a really good nerf, more or less nerf in the correct general direction. But I still think if you're a good Fiora, I still think that is not going to make a difference to good Fioras. So I still think Fiora is going to be S plus tier personally, but we'll have to test it out. I'm not going to be testing it out, but we'll have to see other people test it out. So next we have my boy Jin. So what they have done to Jin is really sad. Basically on his 4-shot, the missing health damage to monsters, it used to be uncapped, so you could crit on a monster for like 2k plus when you're like full build and easily outsmite the jungler. But now what they've done is you now can only do a maximum of 8,000 damage. Now this seems like the same as having a smite, but don't forget that this is AD damage, which of course the Baron has, not Baron, but all objectives like Barons, Dragons, and Heralds have a armor stat. So this is going to be less than 8,000 on your 4-shot cap. So but let's assume that when you're full build you can do 1,000 damage. This is going to be as good as a smite. Now I feel this is pretty sad. Oh, actually, it's not going to be 1,000, because if Actually, yeah, it might be, because if, let's say, you were meant to do 1,500, you cap it at 1,000, including taking into account armor stats, so it would be 1,000 damage at your first shot. So it's equivalent to a smite. So I don't really get why Riot is doing this. Like, they've done this to a lot of execution ultimates. Like, they gave this nerf to Jinx's rocket. They gave this nerf to Evelyn's ultimate. They gave this nerf to Garen's ultimate as well. So Jhin is like at least the fourth one. I'm not sure if I'm missing anybody else out, but Jhin is like the fourth one who is getting a nerf in terms of objective stealing potential. Now, I feel that personally that having maybe Evelyn's one was a little bit unfair, but I think on Garen, Jinx, and Jhin, I feel that them having an ability that allows them to steal an objective is pretty fair, in the sense that they all have counterplay. Like with Garen, he cannot ult the objective, he can only ult someone in the pit, so just don't allow him to do that. With somebody like a Jinx, you can simply send a person to body block, so if you know how to play against it correctly, she doesn't actually have any chance of stealing the objective. And with Jhin, he probably has the best chance of them all. With the rapid fire cannon and with a ward over the wall into the Baron pit, he has a really good chance of stealing the objective. But there's two counterplays to this. Firstly, just zone him away, or kill him even. Secondly, just use a sweeper and disable his ward, so he doesn't even have vision to steal. So really, I think, in my opinion, this nerf was unwarranted. I don't like the way they nerf skills that can steal objectives, but I can see why they've done it, I guess, which is just pretty sad for me. Now, next up is a really interesting one. So Kai'Sa, the person who a lot of people, including myself, think is the best ADC in the meta at the moment, is getting a buff. So apparently they think she's a little bit inconsistent. They want to give her some extra consistency, and therefore they are lowering her cooldown on her E at max rank by 3 seconds from 13 to 10. Now, taking into account that you will lower the cooldown yourself when you actually cast auto attacks, this is going to be a relatively low cooldown when you get to when you max out the supercharge. So they're making the best ADC even better. So I don't know what on God's green earth led them to do that, but it's good since I like playing Kai'Sa. But I don't know why they're buffing Kai'Sa. Obviously, they must have some statistics that indicate she is not as strong as most people think she is. I assume is the case. Lucian, another one of my favorite ADCs, getting a buff. Basically, it's a 1 second cooldown reduction on all ranks for his Q, which is his I don't know if you could say it's his main damage source, but it's gonna be an ability you're spamming a lot in fight, so I definitely like that. 1 second, not too much of a difference. I don't think Lucian is gonna be leaps and bounds better, or even move up to S tier because of it. I think he's still gonna be at the top of A plus tier, but yeah. So Master Yi. Speaking of tiers, I think it's unlikely I'm going to be doing a tier list for patch 3.1b. I think I'll likely wait for patch 3.2 for that to happen. So anyways, Master Yi is next, as expected, getting another nerf. This time his base damage on his Q is getting nerfed by 5 at the first rank and 10 at max rank. Now that isn't really that much of a nerf, but the huge nerf is the AD ratio from 100% AD to 60% AD. Now this hurts his scaling quite a bit, because as we know, when Master Yi picks up a couple of items, particularly AD items of course, his Q gets really strong. He scales really well with items into the late game. So this is going to affect him a lot. Now personally, I think this is an interesting change. It is sure to reduce his damage on his Q, but I just don't know if it'll be enough. Now personally, I think that the best way to nerf Master Yi is to give him the same nerf that you gave him on monsters to champions, which is that on subsequent hits of Q onto the same champion, lower the damage there. But I think that this nerf will affect him definitely, and we'll see in our patch 3.2 tier list how far he falls down the tier list, if he does even fall down the tier list. But he'll definitely be weaker undoubtedly. So Olaf, it has a pretty negligible change. His health cost is going down by 3 at all ranks. It basically means there's almost no real change here, so it doesn't really matter. So Rakan, very negligible change as well. Mana per level going up by about 15 or 16 per level, so his max mana is gonna be higher. I don't really feel Rakan had really huge mana issues in the first place, so yeah, it doesn't really matter all that much in my opinion. Now Set, relatively huge nerf. His Pit Grit, which is his passive which allows him to regenerate based on missing health, is actually going down by half at majority of ranks, and only the same at, I believe this is level 13, it goes back to 2. So basically this is going to make his laning phase a lot weaker, but his late game the same. Now late game you do rely on this from time to time, like just in the neutral game, but this is going to make his laning phase a lot weaker because means he can't regenerate health after trading. And his knuckle down, his Q also getting a nerf of 5 at every rank. So the combo of these two makes set laning phase in particular quite weak. Not weak, but quite a lot weaker. So we'll have to see, of course, as usual, how much this affects him. But I do think that this, especially the pit grid, is going to affect him quite a bit. Next up, Yumi actually getting a buff despite me thinking she's really good. So another one of those Kaisa cases where her bop and block passive, she's getting basically an increased AP ratio and increased scaling on the shield. Now it's 25 per level instead of 22, and 5% extra AP ratio, so bigger shield. Mana restore is going up to 15% instead of 12%, so just minor, like these are minor changes to the passive. But the Q buff is pretty huge. Prowling projectile cooldown is going down at base rank and max rank by 1 second, but base rank by 3 seconds. Normally you max this as your second or third depending on your preference. Mana is going down by another 20. Of course, taking into account they already reduced the mana by 20 like I think 2 patches ago. So Prowling projectile getting to be pretty strong now with the low mana cost and the decent damage. So Yumi, another feather in her cap. And now we actually have quite a few item changes. So here is the Banshee's Veil. AP going up by 5, ability haze going up by 5 as well. Now this isn't going to affect too much in my opinion because Banshee's Veil is a very situational item which you build as your second last or last item, maybe your third item on mages. If you need magic resist and if there is an ability on the enemy team that you need to block, for example, could be a Yasuo Tornado, could be a Blitzcrank Hook. So it's a very situational item. This is going to make it better when you actually build it, but this is not going to make more people build it. So overall, I think it's an okay buff. Hextech Mega Drive apparently still isn't popular even after the bug fix. So they're reducing its cost from 2700 to 2550. Now, the main reason I feel this item is a problem is because of its consistency. With building any other support items, it's very consistent, but with this item, sort of how consistent it is relies on your own skill. Because the main goal of this item is to let you use your redemption or your locket twice in the same team fight. But to do that, normally you need, like, for example, if you're playing Rakan, you're going to need like a 5-man charm and 5-man knockup to reduce the cooldown so much that you can instantly, or not instantly, but you can pop your like locket, for example, in like a few seconds. But not everybody can get multi-man CCs or like multi-times of multi-man CCs. Like Rakan has 2 chances to get 2 5-man CCs or like multi-man CCs. But let's say if you're playing someone like I don't know, like a Leona, for example, you can only stun one person, you can only root one person, although you can get a 5-man like ulti. So it really isn't consistent because other items are just way more consistent. So I guess that they're trying to lower the cost to make it like a little bit more cost effective to maybe encourage more people to get it, which I do think makes sense. So we'll have to see how this change affects things. And Joram's Fist, which is the second tier item, is getting a build path change from Ruby Crystal to Longsword instead. Now, I feel that the main reason for this adjustment is because for people who want to build Divine Sunder first item, they can't buy a Longsword level 1. They have to buy a Ruby Crystal instead, which really hurts their like early laning. So they changed the build path so that they can people who want to build that first item can start Longsword, which I feel is a really good change. So yeah, I think that's really good. Now, Maul Reminder, AD going up by 5. They say it's to compete with Seralda's Grudge, but in reality, Maul Reminder will never compete with Seralda's Grudge because of the passives. Seralda's passive is way better than Maul Reminder, and you only really go Maul Reminder on people who can't take advantage of Seralda's Grudge, or they need the Grievous Wound. So this is same story as the Banshee's Veil. Basically, it's going to be good when you build Mortal Reminder, but it isn't going to make more people build Mortal Reminder. Now, Triforce actually getting a buff because Black Cleaver and Divine Thunder are you know, very popular. So now they're giving it a 5 AD buff, same as what they gave Black Cleaver a couple of patches ago, and health is going up by 50. So this is gonna make an expensive item more worth the gold. And in my opinion, I think that this change is alright. Like, I don't think it needed this change, because I think that most people are overestimating Divine Thunder and underestimating Triforce at the moment, just because, you know, you always want to go for the newer item to try it out, or you just want to go for the newer item kind of deal. But you know, this just makes Triforce better basically. Now Youmuu's ability haste going up by 5 and armor pen going up by 3. Now take note that just like 3 patches ago or so, Youmuu's only had 10 armor pen. Now it has 15. So now they say that the Youmuu's hasn't been performing well since the nerfs to momentum, which there were nerfs to momentum like last patch, but I don't know how much that really affected Youmuu's. Apparently it's a lot, because they're compensating it with 3 more armor penetration. It's just gonna be good whoever already builds it. It's not gonna make more people build Youmuu's, I don't believe. Now jungle, really huge change. The experience granted from Rift Scuttler is going down from 2k to 1200. Now, why is this such a huge change? Because Scuttle gave you not only the vision, but normally the main reason you want to take it in your first clear is because of mainly the XP, because you want to get the Scuttle to get to level 5 faster. Because most people, like when they reach Scuttle, are going to be like level 3, and Scuttle will get them to like about level 4, then they clear 1 or 2 more camps, they'll be level 5. Now, by cutting the XP by so much, the gold and the vision that Scuttle gives is not really the main reason junglers go for Scuttle. It's the XP. So by cutting the XP, it basically means that junglers who don't want to contest Scuttle, like for example Shyvana or Amumu, who are really weak in the early game, are gonna have it a little bit better. Whereas junglers who want to fight in early game, let's say a Xin Zhao or a Lee Sin, they're gonna be going for a Scuttle anyway. So this doesn't really affect. It does affect them in terms of reaching their level 5, but in terms of their jungle pathing, it's not gonna affect them too much. So overall, I feel that this adjustment is just beneficial for those full clear kind of junglers who don't want to contest Scuttle. And I think this is a huge change to the jungle overall, because level 5s are going to come in slower for junglers, which means that, you know, gank timers might change and you know, etc. So this is going to be affecting not just the jungle but laners as well, because it's going to affect when junglers come into gank and going to affect the meta in general. So we're going to have to see how exactly that, you know, changes the meta. But yeah, so that is all the points for patch 3.1b. So hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to me evaluating patch 3.1b. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.